A creeper-only farm has been one of the most requested videos on the channel, and I finally stopped dragging my feet and come up with a design. So let's take a look at the mechanics behind creeper farms and build one. I'm your host, Ledoux, and I would also be amiss if I didn't mention that a split density mob farm is about the same amount of effort, but will also give you bones and lots of other items, whereas a ghast farm is much cheaper and easier to build and will give you more gunpowder than a creeper-only farm. However, you do have to deal with building in the nether, building over a lava lake, which can all be super scary. Now for any credit Karens out there, these mechanics were popularized by Mike Homer and then further by Silent Whisper. I've not actually seen either of those videos, but I have learned about it by talking to people in the Discord. And I know that both of those creators are totally awesome, so you should definitely go check them out. But for this design, I tried to keep it as simple and as cheap as possible, while still maintaining an experience and an item stream to bring those things up to you at your AFK platform. But before we build it, let's talk about the mechanics that allow this to work and why I made some of the choices that I did. The core mechanic behind this farm uses regular ice. Not pack ice, not blue ice, but regular ice, which means that we have to keep torches far away from this farm. However, if you want to light up the farm or temporarily block spawning, you can use soul torches. These will not melt the ice. The reason we want to use regular ice is that mobs can spawn on it, but they can't pathfind to it. So we can abuse their pathfinding mechanics simply by placing some blocks near the ice. But we also need to spawn-proof these blocks without messing with the pathfinding, which is where dirt paths come in really handy. They are spawn-proof, but mobs will still pathfind to them. Next up, we need to block spiders. So now that mobs spawn in the center of a block, we can simply have either a trapdoor, a slab, or a solid block every 2 blocks, and this will block spiders, because if spiders spawn anywhere around these, they will be spawned clipped into either the block or the trapdoor or the slab, which means that the spawning will fail. So as long as we have something 2 blocks away from each other, these spiders won't be able to spawn. Now the reason we're going to use trapdoors is because creepers are as tall as the player, which means that we can walk over the trapdoors, but creepers and us cannot walk over slabs in a too tall area. So you could use slabs, but it would get in the way, so we need to use trapdoors because they're smaller. Then we can block all other mobs from spawning simply by placing buttons on the ceiling. Since creepers are short, they won't spawn with their heads in the buttons, but all other mobs will spawn with their heads in the buttons, meaning that they will fail. With all of these mechanics in mind, the first thing I experimented with was making long platforms. That way we could maximize the spawn area and have all of the mobs dropping in the front. However, if they spawn in the back, they are just too far away to actually pathfind to our front blocks. So I scrapped this idea and started playing with water streams. However, this seemed like a really great idea, but the spider proofing is what really ruins this. These trapdoors here in the middle cause creepers to kind of get stuck occasionally, so I tried to move them around and creepers were still getting stuck, and so I eventually scrapped this idea as well. So in the end, I came up with this simple design right here, which is what we are going to build in this video. It has a centralized pathfinding area, but the main interesting thing that I discovered while messing with these creeper farms is the difference between cave spawns and surface spawns. So normally, with all farms, you want to have surface spawns because it gives you better rates. But with creepers, you do not want to have surface spawns at all. If you allow it to have surface spawns, the rates get reduced by like 50% or more. I mean, it's insane. Now, creepers do have an unlimited creeper cap for caves. However, they should still take into account the population cap for monsters in caves, which is 8. But right here, we have 12 creepers that spawned in the farm while I was staring at it, which is definitely more than 8. So, I'm not sure why creepers break the rules, but if you just allow them to have only cave spawns, for some reason, they break the rules and they spawn way more than 8. One last thing to keep in mind is that when building creeper farms on Bedrock, you can get slightly higher rates by building them above frozen oceans or ice spike biomes. These 2 biomes have a smaller mob pool and thus will improve the rates, but only by like 100 gunpowder per hour. So really you can build these over the ocean, over land, anywhere except over a mushroom island, and the rates will be nearly identical. The max size version of this farm will get about 3,700 gunpowder per hour, and to visualize the difference between building this above a frozen biome and a regular one is this right here. about 100 gunpowder per hour, so I mean the difference is negligible. And here are all the materials that you will need in order to build this farm. Now, of course, you don't have to start off with dirt paths. That would actually be more work. Just bring regular dirt and spawn-proof it with a shovel. That would be totally fine. And all of these materials are for one side, so you will basically need to double them to do both sides. And then the button right here, you need the same amount of buttons as ice. But without further ado, let's get it built. The first thing to keep in mind is your simulation distance. You don't want to have anything within the spawnable range of this farm. So if you're playing on Sim 4, we need to go up by 64 scaffolding. But if you're playing on a higher simulation distance, you need to go up by 2 full stacks of scaffolding. Then once we're up here, we need to mark out 4 individual chunks. In order to abuse split density checks, we need to have exactly 4 chunks between each farm. So whether you use an add-on or chunkbase.com or you just use math is all totally up to you. We just need to mark out 4 individual chunks and then mark out the centers of these chunks because we want everything to be aligned with the centers. Then go to one of the far sides, and in the center along the border, we need to place 2 packed ice with buttons on top. This can just be packed ice or blue ice. It's just to make sure that items don't get stuck. And then we're going to go out 6 glass blocks from those packed ice. So 6 glass from those packed ice, and this does need to be glass to prevent other things from spawning. Then on top of the 6th glass, we need to go up by 3 solid blocks. This will be the back of the kill chamber. Then next to the top block, we need to go forward by 2 blocks on each side so that we are left with a too tall kind of cave thing back here. Now on this 5th glass, we need to go over by 2 magma blocks in each direction. And these magma are optional, but I would recommend using them. It helps damage the creepers so they die faster, and will also help prevent them from despawning by dealing them damage. But now we need to surround this magma in solid blocks, like so. Now right here, you can use glass if you want to see the creepers in the kill chamber, or you can just keep going up with solid blocks if you don't care. Either way, we just want the walls that are surrounding the magma to be aligned with the first thing that we built. So everything will be 3 blocks tall, like so. Then here on the front, in the middle, 1 block above our glass platform, we need to place 4 glass blocks in the center, and then 1 down here on each side to close it in. Now place a temporary block right there in the middle next to that glass, and place 2 pistons facing toward the kill chamber. This will be our trident killer to kill the creepers. So we should have a 1 block hole down here for our items in our experience to escape. Now we need to place 3 glass blocks on each side, extending from the glass over to the ice. Then on top of the farthest outermost magma, we want to place a button, and then flood that button with water. Now you don't really have to place a button there if you don't want to. It just kind of helps reduce like squids spawning and stuff like that. So the water that we just placed should flow out and under that hole over to our frontmost buttons. And now our kill chamber is complete. So now on top of this, from the edge in the center, we need to go forward by 5 blocks, and then on the back from the edge, we need to go back by 5 blocks, and then place a block in the center. So this will be 11 blocks long, sticking out right there, aligned with that ice. It should not go any further past that ice. And then just connect this together into a 2-wide platform. And now we need to use regular ice. Again, not pack ice, not blue ice, but regular ice. And we need to extend this platform out by 8 blocks on each side. So this ice will be 8 blocks long and 11 blocks wide. So again, from here, we need to go back by 8 blocks, 8 ice blocks, and then just connect all of this together so that we have an 8 by 11 ice platform on each side. Then here in the middle, above the centermost magma, we need to just poke out one of the ice blocks, and then surround this toward the inside with dirt. Either dirt paths, or we can poke it with a shovel to turn it into dirt paths. We want this dirt to be up 1 block so that mobs can't actually jump onto it, just they think they can. And then we want it to be spawn-proof without messing with the pathfinding, which again is why we need to use dirt paths. So you will end up with this shape right here. Now we need trapdoors 2 blocks away from everything. So count in 2 blocks from one of the corners, and then place trapdoors 2 blocks away from those. So everything will be 2 blocks away from all of the trapdoors. And we will end up with 6 trapdoors on each side. Now we need to spawn proof the edges for spiders while also trapping in the creepers. So to do this, we either need solid blocks or bottom slabs just surrounding the entire thing. If you want to wall it in, you totally could. Just bottom slabs are nice and cheap. Then we need a coral fan of any color inside of each of these holes. And these are very, very important. Without those coral fans, the mobs will never pathfind to the dirt. You have to have coral fans in those holes. But now we need another ice platform 2 blocks above our existing ice platform. And again, this has to be regular ice. It cannot be pack ice or blue ice. It must be regular ice. And now we need to place buttons on the bottom of this ice. But to get in here, we either have to break one of the ice or the dirt because we can't get in through the sides because the slabs are in the way, or we can kind of run here in the center and we should be able to make it. So it's up to you if you want to temporarily break a block. Either way, we just need to place buttons on the bottom of this ice, on every single ice. Every ice needs to have a button. If there are any missing buttons, then other mobs will end up spawning and lower the rates. But to get out, we can temporarily break out one of the dirt or one of the ice, but now we need to build this exact same thing on the other side. So an ice platform 2 blocks above with buttons on the bottom. Now we need to build another dirt platform in the exact same way. So 1 block above the ice needs to be our dirt, and it needs to have a hole above the hole underneath it, so that the mobs can fall straight down all the way to the trident killer. And again, when you're done, make sure that all of these are path blocks, because you don't want mobs spawning here in the center, or that will also severely lower your rates. But then make sure to place a coral fan on the side of the ice there in the hole, so that mobs think it's solid and will walk into the hole. And now we need to insert some trapdoors. So jump off the edge onto your outer slabs, and we need to surround the coral fans in trapdoors. Make sure to open these trapdoors so that they completely surround the coral fans. These are also very, very important. The farm would not work without the trapdoors or the coral fans. If we used solid blocks instead of trapdoors, the mobs would no longer pathfind onto the dirt. But the trapdoors don't block the pathfinding, but will also keep the creepers from landing on the dirt platforms underneath the one they are falling off of. So you have to have the coral fan surrounded by 3 trapdoors, or you will run into some problems. But now, just the same way, we need to surround this in either solid blocks or bottom slabs to trap the creepers onto the platform and to prevent spiders spawning along the edge. But we just need to build this exact same thing going up, over and over. You can build up to 14 of these platforms in total. So you will see 14 rows of bottom slabs when you are at the maximum size. But if you want to, you could always build less layers. But really, the more layers you have, the better the spawns will be. Now on this topmost one, everything will be the same. You'll have trapdoors, coral fans in the hole, surrounded by slabs or blocks. But the difference is, above this very topmost one, the 14th layer, we need to use glass instead of ice, because we want to prevent things from spawning on top of the farm, but we also need the buttons to prevent normal mobs from spawning inside. So we can just use glass because it's spawn proof, or you could use solid blocks, place buttons below them, and then place like slabs on top of those solid blocks if you want to. That would technically accomplish the same thing. Slabs would block all of the spawns, and then the solid blocks would still allow you to place buttons on the bottom of them. Just glass is cheap, and it works the same way. Mobs cannot spawn on top of glass, but you can place buttons on them. But now all that's left for your spawning platforms is to block out the light to allow mobs to spawn. To do this, we're going to go up by 20 blocks from one of the corners. And now, out of solid blocks, we need to build a frame that is the same dimensions as the farm. So all the slabs will have this frame directly above them. Now, from the corners, we need to count out 10 more solid blocks going out from every corner. And then we can connect these corners together just diagonally, like so, just to save on a few blocks. You could make it perfectly square if you want to, or rectangular, but you can trim off the corners. That works exactly the same. But we need to do this on all 4 corners and then fill in everything. Fill in the center frame, connect the corners, all that stuff. So again, we need to go out by 10 blocks from the frame of the farm. And now we can just break out this row and we're done. Now it will be dark enough to allow creepers to spawn inside of all of these layers like we see here. Creepers should start spawning immediately. And if you see creepers standing around, that's okay. Sometimes it takes them a minute to actually pathfind to the dirt, while other times it is instantaneous. Now we just need to build the redstone. Starting with our collection system. So next to one of these two centermost packed ice with the buttons on top, we need to build a line of glass going all the way across the farm. We need to use glass so that it's spawn proof, but we also need to make sure that we remember where our centermost markers are. The ones that are in the middle of all 4 of the chunks, because that's where we need to AFK, and it has to be very specific. But on this far side, here in the center, go ahead and place the packed ice with the buttons on top so that we know exactly where that farm needs to be when we go to build it. But now you can get rid of all of your chunk marker guides except for the markers in the very center of the farm. Again, those are very important. We have to remember where those center 4 blocks are, because that is where we need to AFK for both farms to work. But now come back over here to the packed ice with the buttons on top, place a glass next to the other one, and then surround that in glass, kind of looping around. And then carry this glass all the way over to the other side. Again, next to this packed ice, place a glass aligned with the bottom glass, then just loop this one around, like so. And now go up by 1 diagonally, and connect this glass over to the other side so that you are left with a canal. Now inside of this little hole right here, this corner, we need to place a bucket of water so it flows next to the buttons and then down your canal. And now every time the water stops, we need to place a pack ice in here, or a blue ice, either pack ice or blue ice, with 2 buttons. One on top of that ice, and then one on the next block. And then we need to flood the second button. So just keep doing this until you get to the center. But when you make it to your center marker blocks, we need to have more packed ice next to these marker blocks, and then one more going off in either direction. It doesn't matter. We just need 3 packed ice, 2 of which will be aligned with the center. And then we need to make a T by extending out 3 more packed ice going away from our center markers. Then place buttons on each side of the T. And now if you're going to run this farm before building the other side, switch out the button closest to that side with a temporary glass. And then once you build that farm, we can switch that glass back out with a button. And I'll touch on that again at the end of the video. But now we need to build a bubble column at the end of this T. So if you want to just use soul sand and place water, that's fine. But if you want to use the kelp method, we need to place a dirt block right there. Now we need to go up by 20 blocks. It's very important to count out exactly 20 blocks going up. So 20 blocks from the ice and that dirt. Now on this level, we need to go over by 2 more blocks and then place 4 marker blocks right here aligned with our original 4 center markers. So we should still have 2 markers down there, which this should be aligned with, and then going in the other direction, it will be aligned with the dirt in the center of the creeper farms. So these 4 blocks is the exact center of our original 4 chunks that we measured out. And we need to place 4 glass panes on top of these 4 blocks because we need to AFK in the center of those glass panes. But now we need to finish up the bubble column. So if you're using the kelp and dirt method, be sure to place a bucket of water there at the top. Then come down here, break out the bottom 2 blocks so that we can place buttons on top of the ice and on the bottom of that block to block in the water. And now place a kelp on top of the dirt, and then just swim up and plant kelp going all the way up. The kelp will turn the running water into water source blocks so that you don't have to place them all manually. Then just switch out the dirt with soul sand, and with that, you should see bubbles confirming that your bubble elevator is now complete. So all of your items and experience will fly up to you at the AFK spot. But we do want to prevent items from flying off into the sky, so go ahead and just place a 2-block tall ceiling right here surrounding the top of the bubble column. Then come back down here and place 1 last bucket of water in the center of that iced tea shaped thing. And now items and experience that flow through the water will then flow down that iced tea up your bubble elevator and up to you. But now we need a collection system for the gunpowder. So first build some rows right here to make a canal that heads toward your glass panes like so. Break out that block, place a chest down there with a hopper pointed down into it, and that's basically it. Place a bucket of water right there above your bubble elevator, and now items will go up, hit the ceiling, and flow out over the hopper. And then you can expand this as you see fit. You could just leave it with a single double chest, or you can build a little platform right here and just place some chests however you want them to be. If you want them aligned with that first chest, just place some hoppers like so. Or if you want more storage, you can always expand this out or down. Just add some more hoppers like so. However you want to do this is up to you. Now we just need to add a lever to activate a clock to activate our trident killer. So somewhere around our AFK spot, we just need to place a solid block with a lever on it. Now, under this lever, it doesn't have to be exact, but somewhere under this lever, we're going to start working our way up with diagonal glass and redstone on top. Now in survival, this is super easy because you can stand on here and just work your way back and forth like you see here. Just place a glass on top of the dust, place dust on it, and just work your way up using this diagonal glass and dust method. And now if it's aligned perfectly with your lever, awesome. We just need that lever to activate that dust. But we can always just move this lever to be aligned with the topmost dust and glass. However you do it, it really doesn't matter. That lever just needs to activate that dust. Now go down and see where the dust dies out. Anywhere that the dust dies out, just break it. And now this very last one, the last active dust, we want it to be on a solid block. And it's okay if this last active dust is in a different place than you see here. We just need this last active dust to activate a clock. So we're going to build a Y shape aligned with that last active dust, then place a repeater receiving signal from that last active dust, then a dust down there, and a torch on the side of that block. So now we have a clock that is directly attached to the lever. So if we go and turn the lever off, this clock should turn on. And now even if this clock is somewhere else, we just need to have dust that is being activated by the torch on that clock. Now we can just run this dust over to our pistons to activate our trident killers. So now diagonally down from these pistons, we will need a block of glass so that we can run the redstone up on top of the pistons. We'll also need to break out those blocks so that we can place dust on top of the pistons. Now this dust won't be pinched by the ice, so it will all be totally okay. But while we're here, go ahead and throw in your tridents, preferably with impaling 5, but if you don't have impaling, that is totally fine. Just throw a trident at the block in front of each of the 2 pistons. Now we just need to refresh the signal so it's strong enough to activate the pistons. So go back to where the signal dies out and place a repeater to refresh the signal so that now the clock will be activating those pistons, which should then move the tridents, which should then kill any creepers in the kill chamber. And with that, all that's left is to protect ourselves from phantoms or from other mobs. So be sure to place some solid blocks above your AFK spot so that phantoms don't spawn. And it also might be a good idea to build you like a little house, out of glass so that you can still see the farms if you want to, or out of solid blocks. It's just always nice to make sure that you are safe. Just in case like raid mobs spawn or some crazy nonsense happens, they could come up the water elevator and get you. But now you can just hold your looting sword, flip the lever to turn on the trident killer, and it is now totally done. As for building the other side, it will be built exactly the same. So just rewind the tutorial and start off from the packed ice with the buttons on it. So we'll go over by 6 glass blocks and then just build everything exactly the same. Now for the collection system, I'll go ahead and do that just in case it's confusing. So we need a bucket of water in that corner right there. Then every time the water dies out, place a pack ice in the floor with 2 buttons and then flood the second button until we make it here to the center. Now if you have this temporary block, go ahead and switch it back out with a button so that now both of the collection systems are connected. And that's it, so build your second tower and you'll be done. You now have a split density creeper farm. So I would like to make a disc farm and a head farm attachment, all of which we can add to this design. Even though it's split density, we can build another mob farm going off in a different direction. So we can build a disc farm and a head farm easy peasy using this one as a base. But that's all we got for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have any questions or requests, simply let me know and I will do my best to help you out. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. Be sure to leave a comment. Your support is greatly appreciated and super important. I can't keep making these videos without it, so thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you so much for watching, for being here, and for your support. Always remember that you are totally awesome, and above all, don't forget to have fun. Bye-bye!